Universities forced to sell property. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I thought we'd have a look at this article from the Fin Review because, well, it sheds an interesting light on the university sector. We're hearing about potential job losses in the professional sector, but in university, well, they're in a unique position, particularly RMIT, which is forced to offload property in the Melbourne CBD. Now, before we go into this, let's jump over to this other article. We'll have a look here. This is from an old ABC article, just the Australian university incomes in 2008. And let's look and try and find RMIT. Here they are. And the orange is overseas student fees, and the other is other income. Now, international students have started to become a significant portion of income for universities. A lot of it is, well, I would say being wasted probably on staff that aren't really adding value, just adding to the bureaucratic mess that are these universities. Probably social justice programs, like QTs, fantastic segregated computer labs. I'm not kidding, those exist. It's horrific. It makes me actually a little disgusted at my alumni, to be honest. But anyway, so the universities are going to feel the impact of international students. They're going to be calls, they're going to be pushes to get these students back here because it props up property, props up the universities. And they all, these two arms, have significant economic pull. I wonder if they're going to have more power than the tourist lobbying groups. Tourist businesses, 7,000 predicted to go under by the IMF here in Australia. Small businesses that are struggling, been completely decimated through no fault of their own. We'll see. We'll see and watch what happens. So let's have a look at this. RMIT University is expediting plans to offload a 14-story strata property on Bourke Street for more than $120 million as it faces financial headwinds as a consequence of the pandemic. So the B-grade property at 235-251 Bourke Street, known as the Tivoli Court, or RMIT Building 108, is on one of the city's main pedestrian thoroughfares and comprises 14 levels of office space above a ground floor shopping arcade and an 88-space basement car park. Now, with regards to commercial property, commercial towers, they've got different gradings. And those grades are dependent on everything from, the energy efficiency of the building, the lift type, the square meterage of different areas, if the building actually has a backup generator. All of these things affect the grade. And you get like AAA grade down to B, C, and D. B's pretty average. Particularly in Brisbane, it's a very competitive market for B grade stuff. More and more people, commercial businesses, they want to get in the A grade, the nice flashy offices with all the new features. We had clients where we were adding end-of-trip facilities to office buildings to improve the grade rating of their commercial property so they could just attract tenants into them. And this is before all of this pandemic-induced lockdown, before there were a lot of, let's just say cultural shift to people's work habits. So potentially, if you're in the construction game, that may be an opportunity to look at. Maybe. We'll have to see. Although it would be pretty competitive, refurbs and upgrades of office buildings. It'd be a pretty tough game. Well, everything's going to be a tough game. Who are we kidding in the next few years? RMIT is selling the 23,500 square meters of office space on a 5-year leaseback deal. The retail plaza, which is owned separately, is not part of the sale. Agents from CBRE and Gross-Weddell have been appointed to oversee the sale. An RMIT spokesperson said it was currently exploring a sale of the building and that ownership of the property had regularly been reviewed since late 2012. RMIT, like many universities, has taken a financial hit as a result of the pandemic because of the closure of international borders, with the sector expected to lose $16 billion in revenue between now and 2023, according to modelling from Universities Australia. RMIT is likely to be the worst hit of all the Australian universities, with a report showing it would face a fee shortfall of $853 million by 2024 in a worst-case scenario, even if it sold 2/3 of its cash and investment holdings to compensate for lost international student fees. Wow, that is a big hit. This industry is gonna be impacted, everyone. It's going to be impacted. Also, in the Melbourne CBD, a few blocks away, Credit Suisse Real Estate Fund International is looking to sell a property at 505 Little Collins for about $160 million. Market sources said a Hong Kong buyer was circling the 12-story property, formerly known as Zurich House. The building has a net lettable area of 18,000 square meters and 3 levels of underground parking for 98 cars. At that price, it would transact on a yield of about 5%. It last sold for $83 million in 2008. Also creating buzz nearby is a development site for a $300 million municipal building at the heart of Melbourne CBD on a parcel of land behind Town Hall, with 4 prominent developers, Citybus, ISPT, Lendlease, and Investor, all vying to become the preferred developer. So here's the thing, with commercial property, it's interesting just to see the differences in the different cities. So what we'll do is we'll just jump over here, and what we'll do is we'll look at the property council data room, because there's a few charts I want to just bring to everyone's attention if you're not familiar with it. This is a great source for information. Let's look at offices, because that's what we're talking about at the moment. And we'll have a look here. So we can see here office levels. We can see Sydney and Melbourne, they really are, they're the markets when it comes to office levels, guys. They've got huge numbers of net lettable area by market. We'll look at the vacancy rates. And this data is only from January 2020. So January 2020, and the average is 8%. And this is for Australia. Now see this climb right here in the 90s. This is from the recession Australia had to have. Remember, we looked at other articles where economists and people were saying this recession that we're about to enter into is going to be worse than the recession Australia had to have. Look at that climb in vacancy rates from about 5% to over 20%. And this is before we had real internet, everyone, before people could work as home as much as they have been. What's going to happen? What's this chart going to look like when vacancy rates? And then how's that going to affect the property market? How's that going to affect the ability for universities like RMIT, who we can see here are heavily dependent on foreign student income, which has disappeared, to be able to actually get some cash reserves from selling these properties? So we'll have a look. Let's look at Sydney. And look at that. Sydney, huge climb in vacancy rates. Huge climb in vacancy rates back then. We'll look at Melbourne. Once again, another significant climb in vacancy rates. Good old Brisbane. We shot up, but we're actually at a higher level now. We're at a higher level now. It's gone back down. Still, we're at about that recession level. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with vacancies here in Brisbane. Adelaide, again, bulge from that recession that lasted a bit longer than Sydney and Melbourne. If we compare it to Sydney, you can see it shot up and then it started going back down relatively quick. Melbourne a bit longer. So Sydney may have recovered a bit faster than some of the other cities, at least in the commercial property sector. And we could argue that demand for commercial property that can be tied to business growth and business capacity. We'll look at Perth, again, sharp, shooting up over 30%, everyone. 30%. Perth is heavily dependent on the mining sector as well. And then, right before the GFC, very low vacancy rates, shot right back up. Hobart, you can see, shot up, went down, shot back up again in the 2000s. Went back down, so it's not doing too bad. Not doing too bad right now, but they definitely were impacted by the last recession. And then good old Darwin, which Darwin was actually founded in 2009, didn't exist before then, according to the Property Council. So we don't have the data, we'll have to see how they go. But here's an interesting one, my favorite. Canberra. They didn't really experience the recession that much, did they? Maybe a bit later, vacancies went up, maybe there was a response for new construction. But they're still a bit high, they're hovering over 10%, so they're above the average vacancy rate. We'll have to see how that market is affected. You've got office demand. You can see here all through Australia. We can see the development pipeline. So you've got 682,000 in the 2020 development pipeline. How many of those are going to remain? And this is all going to flow through and have an impact. Let's look at total office operating expenses, and they've gone up. But this data's a bit old now. That's for Sydney. We'll look at Brisbane, as everything's climbing. Melbourne, everything's climbing. So you can see if people can find ways to save money, they're going to, and one way could be to reduce this requirement. So there we go, everyone. Universities, well, pushing to sell. RMIT going to be one of the worst hit. We'll have to see what happens. Are you shedding a tear at RMIT being forced to sell property? Are they your alumni? Are you a fan of them? I know they've got some quite innovative architecture courses. I don't know what the social justice status of RMIT is like. All universities are a bit funny at the moment these days anyway. As always, thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Please let me know your comments and feedback down below. If you're a fan and want to help the channel, there are a few ways you can. You can interact, helps the channel grow. You can support us financially via joining on YouTube or Patreon, using our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays. You can use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Thanks everyone. I'll see you next time.